Oh,
I know, we're fancy. We've got our own little secretary type thing that lets us know when we're recording. But what are we recording? It's Pop Goes the Zebra. Once again, it's Jeremy the ref. Somewhere on the screen is Jesse the ref. And we are joined today for the second week of Women's Wrestling Month here on the show. Second week, number 204. Tune in, see who else is coming. But first, second week, the one, the only, Valfon's herself, Val Capone. Val, yay, spirit.
hi, dude. How are you doing?
How's
it going?
Oh, it's going great. Are you at the world famous pro wrestling tees in Chicago, Illinois, where people should buy all of their pro wrestling merchandise? Cheap plug.
Yeah, I actually am. I'm currently sitting inside of our closed for the moment retail store. We are still playing catch up with the onslaught that was CM Punk melting the internet, combined with All Out Weekend, combined with a huge sale, combined with Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, Ruby Soho, and a huge title change at All Out. So we are just about able to tread water now. So hopefully soon I can reopen this beautiful storefront again for everybody, because I worked really hard opening her back up after the pandemic. And because of All Out, you could see we're all out.
It looked
gorgeous. We have a few micro brawlers and just, some random one-off shirts, but like the store is pretty empty right now. So, But yeah, I've just been heat pressing like crazy and getting ready to, get the store back together. So.
Yes'm. But can people still go online and order all of their merchandise online?
Oh, absolutely. I'm the manager of the retail store, so that's like my priority and that's my focus. But our website is open 24 hours a day. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, there's like a customer appreciation sale, I believe tomorrow.
Which would be yesterday.
Thanks for everybody's patience. Yes. So you missed it, but I guarantee there will be another sale soon. Holidays.
Yeah. So as stated, we are well, I suppose we'd be knees deep at this point. So start with feet next to the knees. We're knees deep in it's Women's Wrestling Month. And Val, you are very much a part of women's wrestling, the scene of women's wrestling in the Chicago IL. You handle a lot of different, you wear a lot of different hats in a lot of different places. Before we get to that, let's start with the basics. How did you get involved in professional wrestling?
Well, how did I start watching it, or how did I start working it?
Oh, we'll get there. Let's start with how did you get involved in it itself? How did you get involved with the business?
Okay, so I started playing roller derby for the Windy City Rollers in 2004, and I had my first sidelining injury. I had a knee injury, and instead of retiring like a smart person would have, I stayed on for 15 years total. But with that first injury and with all that time on my skates, I became a skater, commentator, and coach. And so talking to the camera just became second nature, at least about roller derby anyway. And, roller derby is one of, if not the only, I think cricket also does it, but roller derby is one of the only sports where the participants can also hear it live. Like we have in-house, not just PA, but play-by-play and color and all that live for roller derby games. And so I was used to speaking to a house live as well. And then flash forward to 2016, I want to say, September-ish, or maybe even August. It was with AAW, and it was their show Defining Moment. And I got a text message from Dr. Keith. Yeah. I got a text message from Dr. Keith saying, hey, you coming to this show? And I said, of course, I love supporting indie wrestling because I've been watching wrestling since I was a wee little Valfonce. And he said, can you be here before doors? And I said, I'm working the Cubs game and your venue is basically on the other side of the planet. So no, I can be there at doors. Why? And he said, because Jimmy D, our ring announcer, had a family emergency, and I thought you would be the best dude for the job. And I was like, I am honored. And so I got there, I did my thing, and my first ever match ring announcing was Mustafa Ali versus Ray Orris. And unfortunately, it ended with an injury.
Oh,
my very first match. So
great.
Yeah. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. I started working with Freelance Underground, and then Freelance, and then Warrior, and then Zello, and Effie's Big Gay Brunch. And now I'm doing stuff with Shimmer, and it's crazy. I never knew that the little girl sitting at WrestleMania 2 would ever actually be a part of professional wrestling. It's very surreal. And now I manage a wrestling t-shirt store. It's super surreal. So
you were at WrestleMania 2.
Yes. Yeah. The Chicago leg
Chicago
of it. Yeah,
part.
at
Yeah,
the Rosemont Horizon.
Yeah. That's the Allstate now.
No,
yeah, so
always the Rosemont
always the
Horizon.
Rosemont. Yep. Anybody that lives anywhere near Chicago knows it is always going to be the Rosemont Horizon. Anyways, so you said you've been watching since a small child. Take me through that. Like, was it grandma? Was it grandpa? Mom and dad? Like, what was the wrestling viewing party like for baby Val?
So when I was basically from infancy until about 6 years old, both my parents were roadies. And so my folks would tour all the time with bands. And my dad would often be like head of security or tour manager or production manager. Sorry, there's an ambulance outside, a fire truck. Or he would be lighting director. And right. So I would tag along with him to whatever shows, and then when I was old enough to be in grade school, more or less, I stopped touring, but my dad still to this day works in live entertainment. And, so I would tag along to all the shows, and I thought that I went there because we toured with Ozzy when I was a kid. Now that sounds very cool, but I don't remember it. I was like 3 because Ozzy escorted out the British Bulldogs. But it turns out the really cool part of it is that my dad was the lighting director at the original Slammies. So that's why I was at WrestleMania 2, because my dad was the lighting director for the Slammies, which is crazy. But, and I thought that was my first show. I was about 7, and my dad said, "Oh, no. You've been going to shows since you were like 3 years old." So yeah, but I just remember being there and watching, maybe the most important match to me personally, although really not that great of a match when you watch it for match quality. It was Not So Fabulous Moolah versus Velvet McIntyre. And I remember asking my dad, like, "Daddy, girls can wrestle?" Like, it blew me away, because now people are very supportive of all genders participating in sports. But in the 80s, that wasn't the case. You either played tennis, volleyball, softball. That's it for kids. Female kids, you know what I mean? And for little girls. And so for me to see women being badass and gorgeous, it was like mind-blowing and earth-shattering. And I really think that not so great match, quality-wise, was the greatest match I could have ever seen, because that's what opened my eyes to falling in love with women's wrestling. So.
And yeah, that I think that really hits the nail on the head. We all kind of have different moments for us of when we first notice women's wrestling. I think for me, the first time I really noticed women's wrestling as a legitimate thing, it was probably Trish and Lita, which is it's still probably not the era that a lot of people want to think about when they talk about women's wrestling, because, obviously 90s wasn't exactly a bright spot for women's wrestling as a whole. But out of that, we still, like I said, we got Trish and Lita. So in and of itself, that kind of leads me to the next question I had is, when did you know that women's wrestling had good heavens, what's going on up there? What is going on up there?
Oh, that's Fred.
Hi, Fred.
That's one of our dudes, Fred. He's an awesome guy.
Friend of the show, Fred.
Sorry about that.
Anyway, when did you know that? When did you first realize that women's wrestling had truly arrived? What moment sticks out to you as the moment?
That's kind of hard for me to say, to be perfectly honest with you, because I've always loved it. I've always thought women's wrestling was one of the greatest things you could possibly witness. So it wasn't like that it made it, because for me, I mean, I remember sitting on my couch watching Monday Night Raw, and one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Dustin Runnels, but Goldust in particular, one of my absolute favorites. And he had the gorgeous Marlena that was always with him and smoking cigars and sitting in her director's chair and doing this and that. And then he had that feud with Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and out came this woman that quite literally whips Marlena like a rag doll. And you can see Mamacita herself. I have Eddie in China, like,
happy belated
on my desk here.
Eddie Guerrero, by the way. It was just the other day. Go on.
Absolutely. But so for me, it was just like, I feel like when I saw China, that might have been like, holy shnikes, women's wrestling could really be something. It doesn't just have to be.
For me, China never really, she was never a women's wrestler to me. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I looked at her as she was always just a wrestler. And her gender really didn't mean anything to me. It was weird.
Well, and it never should have, to be perfectly honest with you. But that's when I felt like people were saying, wait, women can wrestle. They're not just women's wrestlers. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Like the introduction of China gave me hope for something other than just, arm candy. And actual, like, and there's nothing wrong with the gorgeousness of what became the Divas division and all that. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with, like, Lita showing off her thong hanging out of her pants. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's multiple ways to look as a female wrestler. There's multiple ways to be sexy and strong and badass and hilarious and brilliant. Like, look at Luna Vachon. I mean, she's
love
amazing.
Luna.
And also, like, utterly bonkers in the best of ways, and then, fighting her demons outside the ring. But yeah, but she was like, for me, I mean, I'm the same size that I was when I was about 11 or 12, and I'm like 5'9.5", 200 pounds. Like, that's not an ideal woman, but hell yeah, it is. Like, it doesn't matter what size you are, what shape you are. Like, it doesn't matter. If you believe you're a beautiful badass, you are a beautiful badass. And so that's, like, for me, since I've always looked at, like, women's wrestling, like when I was 7 years old, just being like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Women can be strong too. So I never had that moment of like, this is when I knew women's wrestling was a thing. You know what I mean?
It was always
seeing China and seeing, yeah. So I'm very lucky that I had a very supportive father. Like, Tall Dad was so supportive, and my grandparents were so supportive. Like, they loved that I loved wrestling. You know what I mean? They didn't care. They were like, this is cool. This is what she's into. Like, I had my He-Man's Castle Grayskull right next to my She-Ra's Crystal Castle. Like, they didn't care. They were like, this is cool, but not everybody had that. And I understand that. So for me, like, one of the most important moments really was at Evolution a few years ago, like, meeting little boys and little girls that was their first wrestling show. So they will never know anything but badass, awesome women's wrestling, badass, awesome wrestling. You know what I mean? And like, that, to me, that was so crucial.
Like, I almost feel bad that it took that long for that kind of a moment to happen. Like, it took that long for women to get their own show, to get the spotlight and all. Like, it's awesome that it finally happened. It sucks that, it was only a couple of years ago that it started happening. And I'm glad that it's finally caught on and finally gotten it.
On the
shake.
I would say on the mainstream, yes. But if we look to some of the promotions that I mentioned, like they have been supportive of women wrestling, not just women's wrestling, but women wrestling and intergender
Yes.
matches from Jump Street, or an entirety of an all women's promotion, which Shimmer. Like it's, to me, that's one of the most important things in wrestling is Shimmer. And I hope it's around forever and ever and ever, because it showcases names that you might know, names that you might remember, and names that you need to know in wrestling. And they all happen to be women. And it's like such an honor that I get to be a very small part of that in regards to ring announcing. You know, I get to help showcase, like, these are the people that you need to know about, and I get to put a little shine on them, you know, but it's really about the talent in the ring, the two competitors, or however many competitors, if it's a scramble or a tag. But, you know, I think something like Shimmer is so crucial and so important, because it isn't just like the bra and panties matches. Although if women want to dress however they want with the ring gear, it's totally supported. You know what I mean? It's great. And so this Halloween, there's 2 Shimmer shows, and I get to ring announce on the 4:00 show, and I'm so excited.
Ring a ding ding and be done just in time to hand out the candy. Let's go. I do love Halloween. It's one of the few days of the year a fat guy like me doesn't have to care about what he's eating. Where do you want to see women's wrestling go in the future? Like what would you say is like the next step you want to see women's wrestling take?
Oof. I mean, I just want it to be continued, hopefully continued, to be respected and treated like having, yes, the women's matches should be highlighted and showcased, because unfortunately it is the minority. But I mean, having the talent be treated just as well as the male talent is what I want to see. And I would love to see intergender wrestling be more widely accepted, because I come from the world of roller derby, and I was an assistant coach for the USA men's derby team at the men's roller derby World Cup in 2014, where USA took the gold. Just USA, saying, gold medal coach. USA. Sorry. But with that, I had to train with the rest of the dudes. Like, this dude had to train with those dudes, you know, and in order to get across the strategies and the body positioning that you need and things like that. And I love playing co-ed derby or intergender derby. There's nothing better to me than having like an even playing field, because you have all different sizes, all different skill sets, whether it be, you know, men typically with the upper body strength, women with the lower body strength. Like, it's great to see those work together, you know, in an athletic endeavor. And I never once felt unsafe because of my gender against a competitor. And I understand where the argument comes from about they don't want to see a man beat a woman, but like, it's mutually understood, it's mutually respected, and it's mutually traded violence, I guess. I mean, I shouldn't even say violence, it's more of an athletic competition, you know? So I love intergender wrestling. That's what I want to see more of it personally.
I am a fan of intergender wrestling for the reason of, you know, right now there are a lot of women out there right now that are, I'm going to be blunt, are much better workers, performers, and professionals than some of the men running around out here talking about how they're being overlooked. I don't want to hear that. There are plenty of women out there that are better than you, that are much more desirable to be around in the locker room because of their just natural personality and their work ethic alone, that are being overlooked just because of their gender. So if I ever see an intergender match, I automatically want to watch it, because that's where the put up or shut up really comes in for a lot of these people. You know, I will never not be about girl power. You're talking to a guy who, playing Pop Warner, one of the best players on his team was a girl. And that's,
yeah. I mean, yeah. I try to
shout out to Ashley
to get into wrestling. Hey, Ashley.
Or Kearney.
I try to get
Kearney,
in.
Yeah.
I try to get into wrestling in high school,
Yeah.
And I was told that I could be the water girl, and I'll never forget how terrible that felt, because I would be at the gym after school and I'd get off the bench and people would have to pull plates off of what I was just pressing, but then I was only good enough to hold their water cup and their spit cups. Like it was just infuriating. Thankfully, things have changed a little bit these days, where you do have a lot more female presence on male dominated sports. And, I mean, the Chicago Sky are in the WNBA finals. Like, there's a lot more support in women's sports, I would say. It's still not enough, because people would just go, oh yeah, the WNBA, as opposed to like, oh, the NBA, you know what I mean? But I mean, I don't know. I feel like intergender is my favorite style of wrestling, personally.
One of the very...
And it's interesting because
go on.
Whenever I talk to people about intergender wrestling, they go, well, I mean, I don't think he's really beating on her. I just don't find it believable if she wins. And then I just have to go, but you're wearing an Undertaker shirt. You're wearing an Undertaker shirt. You're wearing a Luchasaurus shirt. You believe there's a dinosaur in wrestling, but a woman can never beat a man in wrestling. Or, you can suspend your disbelief to believe that the Star Wars galaxy exists and this almighty force, which it does, is controlling everything,
It binds us, surrounds us, it links us.
Yeah. But you couldn't possibly fathom that a woman could beat a man in a ring. And then they're like, well, maybe a woman like you. I'm like,
oh, God.
What does that mean?
Hold on.
I mean, I don't know.
Like, one of the very first memories I have of intergender wrestling that wasn't on television, it was at AAW. It was Candice LeRae. She went through like a gauntlet. It was like Brian Cage and I want to say Sami Callihan. It was a while ago. I've taken a lot of headshots. I don't remember as perfectly as I used to, but I vividly remember Candice LeRae coming out and actually, I want to say she wrestled Sami Callihan and she went through a draw. Yeah, that's what it was, because Callihan was on his run with AAW with the title, and yeah, he had a real banger with Candice LeRae. And then of course, recently we've got Kylie. She's out here. Kylie can work with anybody, and it's a faux pas name to say, but Tessa Blanchard, she did a lot of intergender wrestling too before she took her sabbatical hiatus or what have you. But like, there are plenty of examples of women going into these matches with men and having believable, physical, nothing held back matches. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's when I do see an intergender match and the girl's throwing a shot for everything she's got, and you can tell the dude's holding back because he doesn't want to hurt her. Like, don't disrespect her like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of shows where I might be the only female in the locker room, like taking notes, and then I'll see another woman enter the room, and I'm like, yes, there's a female on the show, and she might be wrestling a man, she might be wrestling a woman, could be a tag match, I don't know. But I mean, I think it's great. I think intergender wrestling is the next step in the evolution of women's wrestling and wrestling in general, but I also know that there's a lot of stigmas and stereotypes attached to women being strong and powerful. And, as opposed to being strong and powerful, we're just whatever ideas that society has for us, which I'm all about smashing personally. You know what I mean? Hi.
Hi.
All my coworkers are walking through like, oh yeah, Val's on the call.
That's the title of the episode's going to be titled Val Capone and Guests Multiple.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's essential. I didn't get into wrestling until my mid to late 30s, like working in wrestling. And like I said, I'm not a small kitten, and that's okay. Like, I'm not even a kitten, let's be real. I'm not a small woman, and it's totally fine. Like, I remember when I did an interview for freelance wrestling with Eye Candy Elliott, who lives up to the name. He's a handsome fella.
I miss Eye Candy.
He's very much in shape. Yeah, he's pretty wonderful. Hopefully he comes back sometime soon. But You know, and some people were being haters on the internet, being like, oh, look at that interviewer, she looks like she could beat up all the wrestlers. And Elliot, you know, Candy Elliott chimed in and he was like, because she could. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. I mean, I
step
don't
in
know.
and prove
I
right,
like yeah, exactly.
You want to find out?
Well, you'd make a great ref.
Yeah, come on.
You know,
put some stripes on.
I would love to at some point get to be like a guest official for a match. You know how every now and again there'll be like, and featuring special guest referee. I would love to do that. I would love it. It's like one of my goals, because I had no idea that I was going to become a commentator. You know, I just thought I was going to help out and be this ring announcer. And then I filled in for the amazing Kirby as he was recovering from a long. Yeah, he's so wonderful. He's like the best big brother that a new ring announcer could ever have, because he's
just
so
want to hug Kirby. Every time you see him, you just want to hug him.
Well, but the thing is, he's like so nurturing and so giving with his time and his advice, and he never minds when I ask him, like, I'll be on mic and ask him how to do something, and he'll like basically be like conducting like an orchestra. Like, he's just so gifted. He's so good at what he does. And he's very patient and very supportive of everything I do, which is great. But when he was gone and I was filling in for him because he had some health issues, he came back, thankfully. And, you know, Matt Nix, who was the promoter for Freelance at the time, he said, hey, you know, I don't want to lose you, but Kirby's our guy, but we want you to be our dude too. I'm going to create a job for you. So then I became a backstage correspondent. And then that kind of was my role for a while. And then I got asked to do that with Warrior. And then Steve Tortorello, Principal Steve of Warrior fame.
Good friend of the show.
Yes, much love. Very good friend of the show, I'm sure, because he's so wonderful. He said, hey, Valfonce, you know, I want to showcase the strength of women in wrestling. So that means you too. And I was like, what? And he said, if you feel comfortable with it, whenever there's a women's title match or like a #1 contender match or something like that, I would like for you to be the voice that people hear, to be associated with the strong women in wrestling. So when I'm at Warrior, I'm doing the backstage work. And then I also do the ring announcing for usually the women's matches. And then, you know, Rich, he's our lead commentator for Warrior, Rich Piccini. He recommended me for commentary when he wasn't able to make it due to the pandemic. So I last minute became a wrestling commentator. So, and I'm still learning. I still
you never know what you're going to be asked.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I know it sounds so cheesy, but I was super, super, super nervous about it, because I could do roller derby commentary in my sleep with my eyes closed, you know, hopefully my eyes are closed if I'm sleeping, but like, it's just second nature to me because I love the sport so much. But I was so intimidated by the fact that I had never done wrestling commentary. And here I was being thrown into that position for our first show back from the pandemic on Fight TV. Like, no big deal. With Nick Houseman, like, no big deal, you know. And Friday Night Lights, it turned out to be one of the greatest things that ever happened for me career-wise, because now I get to join Rich and Nick in the booth at Warrior whenever there's a match that I want to call. And that's what's cool. They don't just limit it to the women's matches. They're like, no, you're a badass woman in wrestling. Do you want to work this match? I typically like to call the women's matches because I want to showcase the strength and not just the, wow, look at her outfit. You know what I mean? But it's pretty fun. And I can't believe that I get to do it. I can't even tell you how it just blows my mind that little me freaking out about women being able to wrestle is now getting to help little girls freak out over women being able to wrestle. Like, it blows my mind. You
wrestling,
know,
right?
It's so cool.
Wrestling.
It's so cool. Like, I got to ring announce Tessa Blanchard versus Jordan Grace with special guest referee. Speaking of special guest referees, Molly Holly.
Like, yes.
What?
Honorary zebra. But she is a part of the herd. I bestowed that honor upon her. She is officially a member of the herd. She's in the crew.
Well, maybe someday maybe someday I'll get to add that to my resume, because I would love to learn from, especially the two of you, two of my favorite officials to work with, BT Dubs.
Oh, you don't want to learn from me.
Hearts in the
Yes,
chat.
you should.
Drew Carey looking son of a
But,
gun. No, like if when my body finally says I can no longer wear stripes, I would like to maybe someday transition to the commentary booth. I feel like I'd love to give that a try at some point. I'm jealous that you get to do it. That's awesome.
It's really challenging. Like, it's very, very hard, because the lady mark in me is like, whoa, but then I'm like, wait, focus. And it's also hard because so many move sets have so many subtle variations that if you miss it, you call it wrong. And also the fact that everybody has customizable. Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Let me tell you what. Yeah. I still am like, I still want to kick myself in the teeth for something I said at Effie's Big Gay Brunch. And it was nothing controversial, although some people were very upset that we kept saying, we're so proud of this queer talent. But it's like, I understand that it should, just like women's wrestling is just wrestling, but it's okay to showcase that they're female as well. So that they're women as well. And, you know, it's the same thing with Effie's Big Gay Brunch. It's there to showcase queer talent. So we want it. And the participants are proud of whatever flag they're flying that's part of the queer community. So why not showcase and highlight that? Because they want us to. But the one thing that I was really upset about myself, and it's so stupid because it really is nothing, but I called a backstabber a backbreaker. And I'm still mad about it.
How could you, Val? How could you? We thought you were a professional. We thought you were infallible, but you know, but is you know.
No, I failed.
Well, you know.
But no, commentary is a lot of fun, and it's so crazy because, you know, I just did it as a fill-in, and then it's turned into I now join Sterling Richards full-time for for freelance underground or freelance wrestling. Like, we rotate with K-Mel and Sterling on freelance, and then I rotate with Jimmy D and Sterling for freelance underground. And yeah, and then full circle, because Jimmy D is the reason why I got involved in wrestling, because I filled in for him.
And such a great voice.
He's so amazing. And I'm his partner for Zello. So we do commentary together on Zello Pro. And it's just like, I mean, I was going to AAW shows forever. So getting to hear him as a ring announcer and in his tuxedo and with his perfect voice, you know, and it's so great that we get to work together. It's like good vibe. And I feel like we fit together very well, because he's very, like, you know, straight man, and I'm very spaz-tastic.
Yeah.
So a couple more questions here before we wrap it up. What would you say is the coolest moment that you've been a part of so far in wrestling? What you know, if you had to pick one child that's your favorite, which one is it?
That's Sophie's choice, ain't it?
Yeah. We ask the hard questions here on Pop Goes the Zebra.
I mean, you know, I did say Friday Night Lights. That was very, very cool. And to get to be a part of the first show, like, for indie wrestling, to show that it was like one of the first shows, I should say, not the first show, but it was the largest indie wrestling show to come out of the pandemic era. That was pretty cool. And getting to call wrestling on a football field, and also having to run the 50-yard dash back and forth to do ring announcing, and then running on to commentary. That was pretty cool. But I would probably say getting to be, well, and Jesse was involved in one of these. I want to say, yeah, I think they all blend together, but I feel like yes, for Alley Cat's Real Hot Girl shit, that was amazing.
Sweatpants. Was it the Sweatpants Battle Royal?
That wasn't my favorite moment, but that was like the whole, well, I was going to say the collective of it, but yeah, the whole, just getting to be a part of the collective, which, you know, last year today, actually, I got to call Shimmer, and being a fan of Shimmer for so long and sitting front row, usually turnbuckle ringside, like at so many Shimmer shows, and then getting to step into the ring and hold the mic on behalf of Shimmer and all the women that have come through the Berwyn's Eagle Club doors, like that was such a mind-blowing experience for me. But maybe only a skosh better was getting to be a part of the first Effie's Big Gay Brunch and getting to call 2 matches in particular. One was Edith Surreal, who I believe was still wrestling under Still Life with Apricots and Pears at that time, and Dark Chic. 2 phenomenal talents in wrestling, both transgender women, and that match was so good. It blew my mind, and I was just in awe that I got to introduce 2 women that mean so much to me personally. And then just a smidge more than that, if we could, because I'm so emotional. The main event for that show really just floored me, and it was getting to introduce Sunny Kiss against Cassandro. I mean, Cassandro was so crucial in wrestling on every level, but especially for anyone who felt like they didn't belong. As one of the Exoticos, as like the premier Exotico, Cassandro, what a talent. And, you know, the history and the road paver and the ceiling smasher against the future of queer wrestling. Like, it was so cool. It was such a great experience. And like Effie's speech at the end, like, I mean, there's so many clips of all of us around the ring, like banging on the ring after that match. And I mean, I was like, I had to leave the venue because I was so emotional. I like sat in my car and like wept. It was so beautiful. And to get to be a part of that experience was just, it was next level surreal. And yeah, I feel very, very lucky. And I'm so thankful that I got to be a part of something so important. And it still blows my mind that Effie said, no, girl, I got you, sis. I have faith in you. I want to showcase all aspects of the queer community. And as a bisexual woman, there's a lot of bi-erasure. People think it's just a trend and it's just a phase. And it's like, no, you love who you love as long as you love, right? So it was very important to me to be a part of that. And it was just so cool. It was so moving, and it blows me away that I get to talk about all my favorite wrestlers. It's so great.
Well, we have a tradition here at Pop Goes the Zebra that before we let people go, we have to give them a chance to get some heat. Do you have any good stories, anything that you've been a part of, anything funny, anything not too incriminating, et cetera, that you could share? Oh, I love the deer in headlights look that she had. She has a story. She has at least one.
Okay, well, this one's pretty saccharine. I mean, like, I don't feel like anybody's going to be mad at me. In fact, I feel like
go for it.
I feel like people will appreciate sharing this. And it's nothing shocking. I mean, it's not, I mean, come on, it's nothing shocking. But so because I do wear many hats at Warrior in particular, there's a couple things I need to do. Like, I always have like a ton of water, and a ton of iced black coffee
and Oreos.
Okay, that's how I survive.
And Oreos.
I was gonna get there, but that's the thing is, like, I don't ever have time to eat. So, you know, when I get to the venue, plus because I have Crohn's, there's like a lot of dietary restrictions. Plus, I typically keep up with diet. So, my favorite thing to do is myself and my very good friend and camera person, Catherine, who's one of the fantastic women of Warrior that works behind the scenes.
Yes.
She also helps to run our social media. She's amazing. At least our Instagram, and day of show on all that. But she and I always stop at Target and we get a bunch of electrolyte water. So keep the pipes hydrated, you know, and then we buy, you know, 2 or 3 packs of Oreos, and we always get the same table at the back of the room so it's less chaotic. It's a little darker back there. And that way we can just kind of do our thing and study our notes and prep. Like basically she and I produce every segment that you see that isn't in a ring. Like she and I do that. Like anytime we have, it's all improv. It's all things that she and I bounce back and forth of what we should say to people. Right. So now it's been like, you know, about 2 years that we've been doing this or whatever. And so people are starting to know that we're like the Oreo table. And so it's to the point where the wrestlers come up and go, hey, Val, what Oreos you got today? And so we busted out the maple ones, the special edition ones. Those were so good. Oh my gosh, they're so good. I also got Java chip because I love coffee. And then I got birthday cake. And so Brian Cage comes over.
I was gonna say one of the
and
first
he's like,
people
what
has
kind
to
of
be
Oreos?
Brian Cage.
Yeah. So he's like, what kind of Oreos you got, Valfonse? What's up, Catherine? What kind of Oreos do you ladies have today? And I was like, oh, well, Cage, we have maple. You should try it. We have birthday cake and we have Java chip. And he's like, oh, I hate coffee, but I love the Java chip Oreos. I'm like, okay, cool. And he goes, birthday cake. Well, I've never had one of those or something like that. Or he's like, oh, I haven't had those in a while, something along those lines. So I'm like, oh, what's that? There's somebody available that I need to cut a promo with. And then I have to go run into, okay, you know what, Cage, go ahead and help yourself. So I like scurry away to go like do 3 different jobs. And I come back after I cut a promo with, you know, I don't know, Thunder Rosa or somebody. And I come back and I go to open the birthday cake and almost every single one was gone. Mm-hmm. And I can only imagine that he just took like a giant stack and just, you know what I mean?
Brian, man.
That dude can eat. So if you want to keep Brian Cage on your good side, show up with Oreos, preferably the birthday.
I was about to say, I am calling Brian Cage out as one of the biggest hypocrites in health and fitness. That for as good as that man looks, he like you offer him a sweet and he'll just do the, oh no, brother, I haven't worked out today, or I'm cutting, or whatever. He's the first one into the sweets. He is always the first one into the sweets.
Now, in fairness, I don't know if either of you know this, but there's a fridge in the boardroom because like Warrior Wrestling is held at Marion Catholic High School, for those of you watching that might not know that. So our green room, our backstage, whatever you want to call it, is quite literally a Catholic high school cafeteria. Yep. And I typically don't swear when I'm on mic or around children or around the elderly, but I have a tendency to talk like a sailor because my dad was in the Navy, and so I was raised by a sailor. And I have a tendency to cuss more than I don't. And then I catch myself doing it in the cafeteria and I'm like, oh no. But that being said, there's like a fridge in the boardroom where we cut a lot of our promos, and Cage legit has 2 carry-ons worth of chicken breasts.
That man eats.
I mean, you've never seen somebody devour so many calories in one sitting. I mean, it's legitimate. And he'll just straight up, like, people, when you see the memes of people like popping popcorn, he does that.
He pops
chicken breast. And apparently birthday cake Oreos. So, I mean, It's not really a bad story. It's just like, in Woody Woodpecker or whatever old school cartoons where like the buzzard has like the knife with the peas rolling down it into their gullet. I feel like he probably did that with the birthday cake Oreos, because there might have been like this many left out of the entire pack.
That sounds exactly like Brian Cage. That man.
Yeah, that's
man,
about as.
Yeah. Well, it's perfect.
That's about as behind the scenes talky as I'll get, and that's not even bad because now I know how to keep Cage happy.
There you go. There we go. So all of you watching out there who wants to be friendly with Brian Cage, just bring him a lot of sugary goodness. He'll be your best friend forever. BFF, if you will.
And conversely, feel free to bring me coffee and Oreos because I love Oreos.
So. I too love Oreos. If you're feeling so inclined to bring her Oreos, you can also bring me Oreos, because generally speaking, we're in the same place. I'll never say no to food. True. I'll never say no to food. But it's probably about that time where I turn to my illustrious co-host in his dapper little black polo, and ask him if he has any words of wisdom for us.
Yeah, unfortunately, today has been I've been more silent than anything. Just coming into work and seeing the myriad of problems that I've got, and seeing some of the pass downs from other officers that really reminded me that, oh boy, some of these people should not add to our population.
Don't add to the
I
population.
am surprised so many people were not subtracted from the population.
Please don't subtract from the population.
And to be perfectly honest, yeah, we are having a safety briefing coming up because of the actions of some. They did not heed my warnings. Do not be the reason why we have a safety briefing on Monday.
God damn it. I hate the safety briefings, those fucking safety briefings. Because you know there's going to be that
and
little
just to piggyback.
Do you need me to retweet some possums of the hour to you?
It's,
that's probably better.
If I'm able to check anything tonight, because like I said, once I get going tonight, it's going to be, I'm not going to be able to look at my phone for much of anything outside of work. So the more positive possum things that I could see, forbidden catos.
Well,
that's the best.
No, forbidden catos. Well, you know, it's either that or you got to put up with the jackass that wants to piggyback off of what the commander says, which if that ever happens at a debriefing I'm at, that person's getting stabbed with a knife made solely out of butter. That is the amount of hatred I have for the piggybacker off the
Nah. You gotta go after somebody with the MRE spoon.
No, butter. That takes more effort, therefore more hatred. But with that being said,
what if I attack you with a stamp that says Val, so you know who hit you?
Honestly, you know, pulling the curtain back a little bit, I'm getting ready to go play Call of Duty. One of my favorite things to do to people in it after I've killed them and I know they're watching the kill cam is I'll spray paint their body with a heart. That's just like my little, you know, got ya, you know. But anyway, with that being said, this is the crew of Pop Goes the Zebra and Val Capone, Val Fons, Val, everything in the world, great hearts in the chat. Wishing everyone on Earth a good night, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.